first guest that we have today with us is Ustad Aashish Khan ji. Ustad Aashish Khan ji is the Khalifa of the Maihar gharana because he's also the grandson of the legendary Guru Baba Alauddin Khan, a distinguished musician and a renowned exponent of the Sarod. In a musical journey that has been spreading over many decades, Ustad Aashish Khan ji has performed with global audiences and collaborated with musicians like Eric Clapton and George Harrison and Ustad Allah Rakha, Ustad Zakir Hussain, Pandit Anindu Chatterjee, and even Maestro Bickram Ghosh, who is with us today also. He's also worked with Uday Shankarji and Pandit Ravi Shankarji in composing music for ballets and various films of prominent directors like Satyajit Ray and Tapan Sinha. In 2005, Ustadji was awarded with the Sangeet Natak Academy Award from the President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And in 2007, he was also nominated for a Grammy Award under the World Music category. So a warm welcome to you, Ustad Aashish Khan ji. Yeah. And then the next artist that we have today with us is the son of the illustrious tabla maestro, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, and well-known vocalist Sanjukta Ghoshji. He has played 4 Grammy-nominated albums, and one of them won the Grammy. He has been awarded the highest West Bengal state recognition, the Banga Bhushan, as well as the highest state musical award, Sangeet Mahasamman, and received the Global Indian Music Award twice. For me, he's one of India's greatest tabla maestros and as well as a pioneer in the world of fusion music. He's also composed music for over 20 films and formed the band Rhythmscape and has over 100 albums to his credit, like Folktale and Drum Invasion, to name a few. He's also been associated with Pandit Ravi Shankarji for over a decade and was a brand ambassador for the Indian Election Commission in 2011 in West Bengal. And his participation has actually motivated people to vote and recorded an 8.5% increase in the urban voting. So I would like all of you to join me in welcoming none other than Maestro Bickram Ghosh.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Mandarji, while you gave that wonderful introduction, it's a little embarrassing to be introduced in front of Aashish Kaka because he is Guru Saman.
I do.
So having a long introduction in front of him is frankly embarrassing.
You are the number one master of tabla. Not just tabla, you are such a genius.
Such a genius, Aashish Kaka. He's such a genius.
No, please stop.
Why should stop? The world should know what you are. And we are all proud of you.
Thank
and
you.
you are my favorite, musician. I would love to work with you anytime, anywhere.
Well, it's always been, I mean, for me, a great honor, and it's been 30 years now since I've been playing with you, and it turns 30 years this year. So yeah.
Indeed. For me, when I am in the presence of so great maestro, I'm at a loss of words. Who do I talk about and what do I talk, kind of thing. But it's a great pleasure to have all of you. And then going on with the third guest today that we have with us, Pandit Ronu Majumdar ji. Pandit Ronu Majumdar ji is, as we all know, is a flute legend, and he actually needs no introduction because he's performed all over the globe, and he's firmly rooted in the Maihar gharana, and that is something that is really something that is great because he's still striving really hard to maintain the purity of this gharana. Pandit ji has been also awarded the Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 2014, and he had his initial training from his father, Dr. Majumdar, and his vocal training from Pandit Lakshman Prasad Jaipurwale and from his main guru Pandit Vijay Raghav. And he's also fortunate to have received his training from Pandit Ravi Shankarji. So welcome, Panditji, to the webinar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And to the viewers, then I'm sure that, we are all blessed, as I am, we are all blessed to have the great presence of all three of you. And so I think we are all eager to now actually hear from you. So let me begin with my first question. And my first question would be to Ustad Aashish Khanji. So Aashish Khanji, you are the senior most exponent of Sarod and Khalifa of the Maihar gharana. And we have heard a lot about the Maihar gharana, and we would really be deeply interested in hearing from you the vision and the early days of this gharana when it was being established by Baba Alauddin Khan, and how he went about it, how he laid the foundation of this illustrious gharana, especially in the instrumental music. So if you could share some thoughts.
Well, as you know, his life history, he left home at the age of 8 and to learn his music, and then after struggling for quite a few years, finally he found his guru Muhammad Wazir Khan Sahab in Rampur, and there served him for 5 years without learning. Then after 5 years his guru said, I was testing your patience, now I will start teaching you. So after 5 years, waiting for 5 years, then his gurus poured him like an ocean, all the music and everything, singing, because our gharana is a Dhrupad, Beenkar gharana, Beenkar Ravabia. And he took sarod as his main instrument, but he could play anything, and you just give him any instrument. And his most favorite instruments were, of course, besides sarod, violin, then Shrushringar, Rabab, and Shrushringar was his like a instrument which he used to play late at night, like after 10 o'clock when we are all went to bed. And especially this in summer days, we have a big yard where we all used to sleep in the summer open air, and his bed used to be towards our head. And then he used to start playing his Shrushringar. I don't know how long he used to play, but I was lucky, fortunate to hear his music, and then we used to go to sleep, So that was his most favorite instrument in a way. Just after teaching, and rehearsing with Maihar band, then that was his time when he was relaxing with his Shrushringar. And he was a very early riser, and he used to go for a morning walk, and then his day will start with teaching us. Because he used to teach like me. I started at the age of 5 from him with a small size of sarod. It was not sarod actually, it's like a little dotara kind of instrument, but designed as a sarod. And that's how I started learning, and gradually my hours started getting more and more. I ended up like 12 hours a day practicing, like 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, 4 hours in the night. And then he will teach me morning ragas in the morning, then afternoon ragas in afternoon, then night. And then there's to be like a springtime, he will start with Saraswati Puja, and that's the day he will start teaching us all these ragas like Basant, Hindol, Paraj, all the seasonal ragas. And then when the monsoon starts, he will start teaching all the monsoon ragas. There's no other rag. So the whole monsoon we are learning the like a Desh Mallar, Miya Mallar, Charjuki Mallar, Nat Mallar, all these Mallars. And I was so young to understand and to keep them in mind, you know. But he was so strict and such a great teacher, and a lot of things I could not understand. Sometimes I used to get very frustrated, very angry. I used to feel like being tortured by him because I was so young. I had no my childhood. I had no friends, nobody. But only time he used to give me break is in the evening, around 6 o'clock. That's the time you can go out for a walk or play. We had a great field next to our home. So I used to join with the players, like sometimes football, sometimes cricket, sometimes hockey. Sometimes then one of my grandfather's disciple, Jotin Bhattacharya, because we had a huge lawn in front of the house, so he made a badminton court. So I used to play with him, and he sometimes just with other people. So that's how my life started, and then my first concert was with him for All India Radio National Program. This was the first national program was with Bismillah Khan Sahab. Then second was with my grandfather, and the tabla accompaniment was by Pandit Kanthe Maharaj. And because Pandit Ravi Shankar and Dr. Narayan Menon, he started this program in 50s, early 50s. I would say 52, I played with him in Delhi. It was a live broadcast for 1.5 hours. And this was a live concert every Saturday. And people all over India, they used to wait to listen to different artists from north to south. And that's how my career began with him. And the same year, there was a concert in Calcutta, Tansen Music Conference, where three of us played, like three generations played together. So that was my second kind of a introduction to the audience. And after that, I used to play with him wherever he used to play in concerts in Calcutta mainly. So that's how my life began as a musician playing concerts. And then excuse me, because this change of weather has affected my voice. So, and then in 67, now before that, I went with my father 1962 to Japan for a festival of all the musicians from all over the world. That was my first trip to foreign country. Then in 67, I came with my father to teach, assist him in teaching, and also playing with him for the American Society for Eastern Arts in Berkeley. That was my big kind of a exposure to different part of the world. I mean, I was not ready for that shock of culture and place and so many things. But that really gave me a big exposure to hear all these different kind of music. Like I never heard guitar, like a classical guitar I'm talking. Because in India they play slide guitar. I thought that is probably the guitar. But when I went to a live concert by an African musician called Bola Sete, he was very famous at that time. And it blew my mind that because he used the flamenco style classical guitar, which they don't use any pick, they use the right hand with the nails. And that blew my mind. And gradually then I was exposed to Arabian music, then jazz, then symphony, God knows what. And everything just was very difficult for me to digest. But I developed some interest, and then also I started playing with some musician. My big exposure was working with George Harrison in 1967, same year when I was traveling with my father. We came to London, and then George came once. Before that, I met George in Banaras when he came to see Ravi Shankar, and then we became very good friends because we were almost same age. Then he asked me in London, would you like to play for my movie? And the movie was called The One Call. So I said, why not? And so he took me to his studio. That was my first experience recording on a 4-track machine. And my accompanist was Mahapurushji, because when he came to America in '67, myself with my father, with Mahapurushji and Nikhil Banerjee, we were all came to America. So I recorded some tracks for the Wonderwall. Then he asked me, play another track over your track. I said, what? How does it happen? I never experienced that. But anyway, I tried my best and he was very happy. And his music was more popular than the film. The film came afterwards. If you ever get a chance, see the film. It's called Wonderwall, by music by George Harrison, and a lot of other musicians were also being recorded, like Shiv Kumar ji was there, and there were so many other musicians. Anyway, so that is, and that inspired me. Then when I came back again in 1968, I went after 67. I went back to India. Then I came back 1968 to teach at the Kinnara School of North Indian Music, which was created by Pandit Ravi Shankar in Los Angeles. And then I met some of my American friends, and they were looking for some Indian musician. They wanted to have some recording for their songs. So myself and Zakir Bhai, we did some recording with their songs, and our producer was Richard Bach, who has was the first producer who recorded so many albums of Pandit Ravi Shankar, my father, myself, and some great musicians from the South, like Balachandra, S. Balachandra, and then Pal Ghat, Mani Iyer, So he has done a lot of great work for the Indian music. So he asked me, would you like to record with these guys? I said, why not? So we recorded, and that inspired me and gave me an idea. Why not we create a group? And then finally we created a group called Shanti, which was based with rock and roll, jazz, and in Indian music. And that became very, very famous. And at that time, my contemporary group was the original Chicago. And then Santana was just coming out. And then, of course, another group. So mainly the disc jockeys from east to west, they used to broadcast our LP. And then they used to discuss about our music and our group, because that was the first kind of a music which is, combined with Western music, jazz and pop and all that. So that's the story of my Shanti. And then after that, there are some people.
Ashish, can I just butt in here? Since you're talking about Shanti, I have to say something about Shanti. I was a kid then and living in America, and I was completely hooked on that album. I was so hooked that I was hooked for years, because even when we came back to Calcutta, I used to listen to the LP every day, to the extent that my father, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, used to say that, I mean, how hooked are you on this album? Why do you listen to it like 4 times a day? I was listening to it. It was a phenomenal band. It was brilliant music. And it was the first time that kind of collaborative, cross-cultural music happened. So it was an important landmark in the history of, collaborative, so-called fusion. I don't like the word fusion, but that was the first one that happened. And because I heard that somewhere, I think, in my head, many years later, whatever I did in terms of my fusion, there was something there from Shanti which is still stuck there. So yes, please, I had to say that.
Thank you. But my misfortune was I was very new to this country, did not understand a lot of these politics going behind me. Because some famous musicians, they didn't like that my band was getting popular and I was getting famous, so they got scared, and then they started bribing my manager $25,000. He was bribed, which I came to know later on, and so gradually the band got dismantled. But after it was dismantled, one of my colleagues, Frank Lupica, his brother said, do you know, when you were getting dismantled, you had a booking of $50,000 in the East Coast? I said, what? because our manager never told us. So anyway, the group Shanti got completely destroyed. But I tried to do a lot of things. Finally, I also recorded in 1975, which had never been released. It was about to release. That I had a very good budget, and I used a lot of great musicians in that recording, starting from Charles Lloyd, and then many other, like in drums I had anyway, later on when I remember the names I'll tell you. So that recording, I was waiting to hear the releasing date. That was recorded, produced by Capitol Records, and I was just waiting and waiting. Then one day I called them. I said, no, that has been cancelled. That was also done by some musician, so that album should not get released. It is still with me, and I want to release it someday. I don't know when. Anyway, so I've been always working with Western musicians, and because I enjoy collaborating, and now I am into jazz. I've worked with Charles Lloyd, then John Handy, and few other musicians. And then I went, recently, means almost 10, 12 years back, I went to New Orleans, where I found very fine musicians in all kind of instruments, because New Orleans is like a mecca of jazz in a way, and all the great musicians are there, and I was lucky to play with them. Then I formed a group called Sringar, and my favorite musician, who unfortunately passed away, was Team Green. So you will find that particular piece in the YouTube. It's called Sringar, and which I've dedicated to, the title is Missing You. And it's played by Team Green on sax, myself on sarod, and few other musicians, local musicians. So if you have a time, and it's been recorded live, and some overdubbing has been done just to make it quality good. So if you get time, you should listen to it. It's because I work mostly with melody, rhythm, because our Indian music has the strongest melody, whereas the Western music doesn't have so much melody, but their harmonization makes it so great. So I try to, incorporate our melody with Western harmonization. So that makes a unique combination. So that's the idea I've developed in creating music, and I love all the great musicians like Ronu. Ronu is one of my most favorite flutists, and I consider him is number one in the world. And not his music. He plays from his soul. He's not a commercial music running for the money, running for the concert. Even there are people, if you pay them, they'll play in your bathroom, So it's very unfortunate, because they only think of money. But our music is not for money, it's for mass prosperity, And I found that playing and that music in Ronu, and unfortunately, that recording we could not release it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it with Ronu, and his playing it blows your mind, and it's out of the world. And I'm hoping when he come to India, I have some plans to play with him, play some duets, And Bickram, you have to join us.
Of course, honored.
Wow, that would be...
it'll be a family reunion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is something really to look forward to, having you here in December, and then.
So think about it. When I come to India, we'll get together and play some music, do some recordings, whatever comes, So any other questions? Because I just explained you what came in my head.
Yes, it is. We will continue with this discussion. It was really an interesting answer. And when you spoke about, Baba Alauddin Khan, who was also, you mentioned that he played many instruments. And his forte was instrumental music. And for the viewers who might not be really aware, Baba Alauddin Khan actually played quite a few instruments. The sitar, the sarod, shehnai, pakhawaj, tabla, badang, and flute, and he was, in fact, also, he's credited with the invention of a couple of instruments, like, for example, the nal tarang, which I understood is made from gun barrels, and chandrasara. So,
I have to tell, sorry to interrupt. I
yeah,
have to tell about Nal Tarang. Nal Tarang was invented by accident. One morning, I think he was visiting Maihar Maharaja, and his guard was guarding, and maybe he fell asleep or what. His gun fell on the stairs. So my grandfather said, "What is that? What that sound?" Then somebody said, "Well, that was that gun which fell on the floor, so it made that sound." So he got excited, and then he said, "Can you give me some barrels? I'd like to create an instrument." And that's how he did the invention of Nal Tarang was
yeah.
made. Yeah.
Yeah, that is such an interesting thing, isn't it? Because when we talk about the gurus, for them, every sound is a music, so they are able to really look at it from that perspective. But thank you, Ustadji, for sharing so much with our audiences. It's
Yeah.
a rare opportunity to talk to you and hear from you.
Thank you. Anytime. Then he's also his band, Maihar band, and God knows how many hundreds of compositions he had, and they were all played by heart, no notation, nothing. But this one thing I like to bring this point very strong to the people of our country and all over. His Maihar band is dying in a dying condition. There is no help from our government of India, and they hire the non-musician. They hire scheduled caste. I have nothing against them, but they are not musician. They have no idea of music, no idea of any instrument, and they were just given a job. They just come and sit in the orchestra when there is a rehearsal, but only few musicians left, and it's really dying. And I'm so it's unfortunate to our people and to the country, to the world, that such a great orchestra, which is composed in so many different ragas, different talas, and that is going to be dying. So I request this is my request, and especially in Bhopal, there is a Alauddin Academy. They are getting money from the central government, and they are not doing anything for my grandfather's festival even. They were just putting their money in the pocket. And even one musician long back, he told me, "Do you know, they made me sign for 500 rupees, I'm sorry, 5,000 rupees, and they just paid me 500. So where the rest of the money goes?" So this kind of corruption is going on. And when there is a time comes to Maihar festival for my grandfather, this is how it started in 60s. And that's the time my father, Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Khan Saheb, and all the great musicians performed there. But now when they always make, "Oh, we don't have money to pay anybody." I mean, that is just a lie, and but they're using that fund for other purposes, and they're hiring almost unknown people, so they don't have to pay too much money, but they'll make them sign, "Oh, I paid them 5,000, but probably they're paid only 500 rupees." Yeah. So this, our government, especially I will request to Modi Sahab, that this academy should be moved to Maihar, and where I can take care of it, and I can rejuvenate again and make it like what it should be. So
True.
that's all I can say for
Indeed.
now.
Let's hope that is how it works. But
God hope.
thank you so much for your answers. Really good talking to you. And then the next question I would like to address to Maestro Bickram Ghoshji. Bickram Ghoshji, you are a very versatile artist, and you've been associated for over a decade with Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, also performed I hear with Ustad Aashish Khanji himself. So can you, share with us your experiences when performing with the artists of Maihar, and I mean, do you have to make any changes in your style when you're performing with artists of the Maihar gharana as compared to maybe some other gharanas?
Right. First, let me say a few words about Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab, because I have a take on this. See, every generation exists in a bubble. Every generation thinks that they know that these are the people who are important, who are famous. But life is like that, that with every generation, as every generation passes, it is a habit that people tend to forget what the past was. It happens in every generation. But it is important for us in every generation to remember the past, because if you don't remember the past, then you do not learn the greater truths of this life. And how is that so? Because I'll give you a very concrete example. So everybody knows who Steve Jobs was. Everybody knows Apple. Everybody knows the computers. Everybody knows the iPhone. How many people remember Alexander Graham Bell? Alexander Graham Bell was the man who invented the telephone. Without the telephone, you cannot have a computer. So if Alexander Graham Bell was not there, then Steve Jobs wouldn't have been there. And all that we see today in terms of the connectivity, none of it would have been there without the telephone. Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab was the telephone, and he was Alexander Graham Bell. He was the first man.
Wow.
So that is where the sutra was, the fountain. So it is very, very important that new generations, those younger than us and younger, they know this history, that how it came to be. Where did they get their computers? They got it from Alexander Graham Bell. So we are all today here in our respective professions. We are all doing our own bit, and lucky to be doing that, everybody in his or her own way. But we cannot forget the sutra. So that is the importance of the great Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab, because if he was not there, imagine what would have happened. Imagine the people who wouldn't have happened. And that includes all of us here, of course, but it also includes such great artists. I mean, the history of classical music is really intrinsically woven into that man, you know. So, yes, I mean, it is one cannot ever overestimate what his contribution was. Having said that, now talking about the Maihar gharana and playing with the Maihar gharana as a tabla player, well, for me, that is my screensaver. That is what I first learned to do. I did not learn to play with any other gharana first.
Okay.
Because my father played with Ustad Ali Khan Sahab, Aashish Kaka's father, and he played with him for so many years, and he was so influenced by him. Till his last day, I'm talking about my father, till his last day, he used to call Ali Khan Sahab Dada, and he used to constantly talk about him till the last day. So, oh, Dada used to say this, Dada used to say that, Dada used to say this. So I grew up in that house where Maihar was the default mode of my computer. So I knew that. It is only much later that when I became a professional, I was playing tabla with other people. Then I started understanding other gharanas. So for me, playing with Maihar is like the second most natural thing for me to do. You know, play tabla, and what do? You play with Maihar. So that is for me there is a huge allegiance there also, which is also there with this family, because my first ever break was with the gentleman there on the screen there. He was the first one who gave me my big break. My first ever tour in 1991 to South Africa was with Aashish Kaka. His younger brother was I learned sarod in my childhood, and I had a Gandaban ceremony also from Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, but then I did not have the opportunity to learn from him. But I learned from Dhyanesh Kaka. And Dhanesh Kaka was my sarod guru. I was very small. I must have been 6, 7, so few years. And then when I insisted on playing tabla, and my father wanted me to play sarod because he loved the instrument, obviously because Dada played sarod. So then he wanted me to play, but then my knack was towards tabla. So my father saw ki nahi, chalo ye tabla bajate hain. So once I was into tabla, I was going to Dhanesh Kaka, and I was practicing with him right from my bachpan. So then I grew up learning that style. I grew up learning, then playing with Aashish Kaka for so many years and everything. And then later on, of course, Ronu and I had a very, very intense, a very, very close and very, a musicality of brotherhood, really. And that has been for many, many years as well. That too from the early 90s, we've been playing together. So I think for me, I think Maihar for me as a tabla player, one thing I really like about Maihar is that there is a lot of scope for tabla. The style of Maihar is very interactive with tabla, and that helps the tabla player as an artist, as an individual, to grow. Because unless you're challenged, if you're just sitting and playing and playing predictably, then you're not challenged. Then you don't grow as an artist. But here with Maihar, you're I mean, metaphorically speaking, you're slapped around, because you are thrown these challenges, and suddenly Aashish Kaka will do something in a quarter beat, and then he'll expect me to play it, And if I don't play it well, I miss the ball then. So I have to play it. So those challenges are very important to the stylistic approach of Maihar Baj. And of course, later on, going to Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, playing with him, Guruji, because I had a gandaban from him as well, and which shows how this whole gharana is all around me. It's like here, there, everywhere. So playing with him again, it was the same thing, because he was challenging you like what? I mean, he would suddenly, without announcing, he would start playing Tissa Jati Rupak. Suddenly he would play Pancham Savari. So you have to be ready with that. You, as a tabla player, you have to be so. Unless you had that knowledge base, unless you were ready for that kind of challenge, and then look at who you're playing with. I mean, Aashish Kaka is like a father to me. Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Guruji was almost like a grandfather. So you can't. The distance is so much between the two artists that one is a grandson, one is the grandfather. Then imagine the pressure on me to play and not make a mistake, and to make him happy that I was giving him good sangat. So that I really attribute to two things, that I was able to do that. Of course, everything boils down to God. What he decides for you is what happens. But also in this life, of course, it's my father, my guru, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, who taught me all the ways to accompany. I'll give you a very, very interesting example that Baba, my father, once told me. Somewhere in the mid 80s it was. I had played a concert with another young artist, young then, when we were young. So, and I came home, and I thought I had played very well. So I was very happy. And I thought my father's going to say, "Wah beta, bahut acha bajaya beta, kya baat hai." So he said nothing to me. So 1 day went, 2 days went, he said nothing, and I was dying of suspense. I was like, what is going on here? Say something at least. So then my mother went to him and said, "What is this? Come on, you have to tell him what you feel." So he said, "You played very good tabla." So I said, "Oh, thank you." He said, "You played very good tabla." He said it twice. I said, then I'm starting to think, what is wrong? Why is he saying this twice? He said, "You played very good tabla, but you played bad music." So this is how I grew up. This is the kind of talim I had. So you can be a very good tabla player, but if you're not playing appropriately, your sangat is not correct, your nuances are not right, your sensibilities are not correct, then it doesn't matter whether you're fast, you're a lot of math, whatever you're doing doesn't make a difference unless your musicality is in place. So these are the things that I learned, and because my father was so close to Maihar, I learned from him, and hence this whole it is a circular process that continues, and that is why I played with Aashish Kaka for so many years. We just, I mean, one of the last concerts before the pandemic was, I think, with him, and we met just before that in my house. And each time we play, I don't know what he's going to do on stage. He can throw me a googly anytime, you know. So he will, and he likes to do that also. He last concert I remember he played a 3-avartan gat. The gat was in 3 avartans. Teen tal, teen tal. It was going in 3 avartans. So when it is in 3 avartans, what is the calculation you do to bring a tihai? so he gave me a googly. First time I missed it, I know, but I got it after that. And he was like, you know. So this is what goes on stage. These challenges, you know. This is Maihar. Maihar will throw this at you, you know. And it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic, and it is a blessing for me that I was able to see this gharana from so close through my father and through my own career. And just God's grace. Thank you.
Lovely. I mean, it's really interesting to hear, you know, because these are, I think, pieces of information that would never be actually known to the viewers. They will only see your performance, but the challenges and what actually goes on in stage behind is probably not known.
No, I asked Aashish Kaka, I'm telling the truth. He that 3-avartan gat he played, I got it wrong first time. He looks at me like this. So then I said, okay, give me another one. One more chance. You just started it. Next time I got it. So this is the energy on stage, you know, and it is so palpable because you are learning on stage. What are you doing? You're learning on stage. All the time you're learning.
Absolutely.
So it's fantastic.
Indeed. Great. That's so nice to hear from that. Yeah, good.
I have to say something about these compositions of the gat. These are all gats composed by my grandfather, because in olden days, all the tabla masters, sometimes they will show a lot of their ego. So, so my grandfather never liked it. The moment he used to see that ego coming from them, then he will, my God, he has such guts. Like you can't find the tal, you can't find the sum unless he shows you. So that's the way he used to put them down, their ego.
Indeed.
Crazy.
I was lucky to learn some of his compositions. And they're beautiful compositions. It's not just like playing for 3 avartans, you know, it just gets. And there's another gat is called the sam bisam. That means second time this sum will, you know, you will see the sum, not the first time. So very interesting. It's like a 12 divided by 16, that kind of a. You know.
Indeed.
Wow.
Okay. Then, having heard your sort of answers, I'd also like to sort of get now Pandit Ronu Majumdar also involved in this. So, Ronuji, I mean, you played for global audiences, and in my view, you are probably the only flautist who is playing the pure Maihar style, you know, in the Binkari Anga, which is the hallmark of the Maihar gharana. So, if you know, we would like to hear your journey and your association also with the Maihar gharana. If you could sort of talk about that a little.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored, first of all, to have because I have been calling him Aashishda, but actually, as Bickram Bhai said, he's for me a guru and Aashish Kaka. But I'm really speechless and very emotional, and I had tears when I couldn't just. I'll just go on saying certain things which happened to me. I was born in Varanasi, as you know, and so Varanasi those days was like a, you know, supplier of musicians to all over India. Pandit Kante Maharaj ji, Kishan Maharaj ji, and Girija Bua, and many things. So also my grand guru and then later on I learned from Ravi Shankar ji also directly. He had a house, still it is there, called Hemangana. So I used to go with my father, and when I was 5-6 years old, and my father was basically not a full-time musician. He was a patronizer from Bangladesh now, from Faridpur. So he was welcomed in all the musicians' house. So we could just walk in to Hemangana. So I was listening about Maihar band, Maihar connection from Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and I was fascinated what's happening. And many musicians used to come, and there was a concert called Rimpa, organized by Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and I used to go to watch those concerts. वो मैदान में होता था. So I never knew that I will be connected. So I used to learn all the Banarasi Tumris, which Aashish Kaka corrected me, one of the Maihar composition. He said, "Arey, in Ukraine, Aashish Kaka, if you remember, you said, "Arey, tum isme Banarasi dal rahe ho, because you are definitely, you have a lot about Mahadev Prasad Mishra ji, the Tumri Samrat, and blah blah." So I came to Mumbai in '73. Still, Maihar is ringing, but I could not connect with Maihar. Then I was learning. After coming to Mumbai, I went to Tan Samrat. I was talking to Bickram ji about Tan Samrat, Nasir Ahmad Khan Sahab nowadays so much. So his tans were like Jalebi Tan, Talwar Kat Tan, Bam Pataka Tan, and those things were like a very Khandani kind of names. So Bam Pataka Tan mein tubelight फूट जाएगा, ये होगा, वो बहुत कुछ होता था. So then I became disciple. I was learning vocal from Lakshman Prasad Jaipur wale. That was Kumar Shyam Gosai Gharana. But always Maihar was talked everywhere. Even with Ustad Nasir Ahmad Khan Sahab and Pandit Lakshman Prasad Jaipur wale. Lakshman Prasad ji suggested me to go to Vijay Raghav Rao ji. And when I went to Vijay Raghav Rao ji, one of the god of Bansuri, and Aashish Kaka has worked with him, and बहुत ही हम्बल और संत आदमी थे. जो भी उनको देखे, विजय राघव राव जी तो संत थे. So I again started Maihar, and then I didn't know that he was basically a Carnatic flute player. So he learned from Pandit Ravi Shankar ji in Delhi National Orchestra, जो रेडियो में होता था. तो ये सब कनेक्शन में Maihar आ गया मेरे जीवन में 1976 में, when I was 13 years old. So then the song that Atha Swagatam, Shubh Swagatam, that famous song Panditji composed, Guruji, for Asiad. So I played flute in that because my Guruji said, I will not play, I will conduct, and he used to call me Ronu. Ronu will play. So I just played in the Atha Swagatam, wo jo famous गाना है. तो वो होने के बाद बड़े Guruji we used to call Pandit Ravi Shankar ji. He loved the grasping or whatever I had a little bit, and fast notation writing. And so I became integral part of him, and then I went to Delhi, played Uday Shankar Festival, and then many records. So that was the Maihar connection, and directly I also started learning from Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and became very associated more and more Maihar purity, bean curry. And then when I went to 19, because there are many stories and I cannot just, bring everything here. So I want to just say one thing, that bean curry thing, you said how bean curry, ang alap, bean is nothing but the veena. And veena used to be called bean those days. So I went along with my Guru Bhais, Pandit Vishwamohan Bhattji, Pandit Tarun Bhattacharya, and many other, Partho Sarthi Chaudhary ji, and many. So I had my birthday on 22nd June, and Panditji called me, Bade Guruji, Ravi Shankar ji, in his room. I was on 22nd floor in Moscow, and he was on 6th floor. He said, tomorrow morning you have to see me at 6 a.m. I was so scared to death. I said, I must have played something very wrong. Otherwise, why is he calling? And in Bengali, he said, Aka Esho, means come alone. I went, and he said, you know what, you are playing is not bean curry. It has nothing to do with Maihar Alap. And I was shocked. Said, I'm giving you very heavy duty on your shoulder. No one, people get stamp of Maihar, but they don't play like Maihar. Guruji said to me, 6 a.m. in the morning. And he started playing. I started crying because he asked me to bring the D flute, because this is E, no? So in sitar, you can maximum go up to D. Maybe some people change the string around. That's another subject, to go to D sharp and change the skills. So those are Murshana and other things. Well, so Maihar everywhere. And then I want to play in 90s. Then I became, because it's a Moscow connection, then I became very close to Vishwamohanji, Tarunda, Parthobhai. So we started this golden trio with maximum tabla played by Bickram Bhai. And then one thing before I go to then ask, I cannot talk much when Kaka is sitting here. So this is a Maihar connection. Every bit of me is Binkari. And Guruji took some names also, which I just cannot tell you now. That these are all going to say I'm Maihar, but why don't they play like Maihar? There is nothing of Binkari, nothing of Kirtan Jamjama, nothing of those compositions which can be played in flute, in a bolang. Why don't you try, beta? So I have been trying, and then I'll come back to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ronuji, that was really, a very deep answer. Thank you for sharing with us your journey. I'd like to then again go back to Ustad Aashish Khanji. Aashish Khanji, the bars of the Maihar gharana, it's very distinctly unique. For example, the nuances of the Drupad, its Alap, the Jod Chala, they're all integral part of this gharana. So we would like to hear from you a little more on the Drupad connection and your views on, specifically the raga renditions of the Maihar gharana. If you could, shortly sort of tell our viewers that. Because these are so, very intrinsic and at a lot of nuances that not many people really understand this. And now that we have you with us, it would be a great opportunity to, hear from.
Well, first of all, his guru, direct from Mia Tansen's daughter's side, and that was Drupad mainly, and Binkar and Ravavia Gharana. So he was very strict about the purity of a rag, not to make it commercial, and the alap is called the Shuddha Bani, means pure, completely pure, not a khayal style of alap. Like the difference between our gharanas, I'll give you two examples. Like these great musicians like Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, they are two great, So Vilayat Khan Sahab's style is more like a khayal style of his alap. And whereas Pandit Ravi Shankar's alap or whatever he is playing is a totally Drupad style. So it is much more richer and it's very difficult to digest because it's not commercial, not to please the audience, because mainly to keep the purity of the rag, purity of the shrutis, because that's very important in our music in gharana. And I don't see shrutis nowadays. Shrutis are banished long back, because even I'll give you my experience. I was playing once with my father, Rag Darwadi Kanra. And the moment I come to the Dhaibat or Gandha, one of those, heavy notes, and he was to look at me and say, no, it's not right. His Shruti is not correct. So then I had to develop that Shruti, because every rag has its own Shruti, especially like a morning ragas, even afternoon, late night. So these are the rules of a raga, which you have to learn from your guru, and keeping the purity, not to please the mass. Because nowadays, even when I started playing, that was the time it was at least the music was there. But nowadays music is finished. It's all Bollywood music, and some of our young musicians, they don't learn properly, and they like to dress up like a Pandit Ravi Shankar or some famous musician, and like to just learning few days and want to perform with all these gorgeous dresses, you know. So they and like to earn money and make themselves very cheap. So that's the reason our music, our ragas are getting destroyed, And at least I try my students to keep that purity. Like right now, I'm teaching my nephew Shiraz Ali Khan, and he just put his music on SCL. Today I was listening in that YouTube, you'll find it. And he's trying his best to keep this gharana alive. And also I have my other students like Aashish, Mukhopadhyay, then Diptanil, and so many. So I'm trying to keep this music as pure as I have learned, and I'm very, very critical about this. And we don't hear the pure rag anymore, unless you listen to my father's recording or Pandit Ravi Shankar's recording, even Pannalal Ghosh, who is the first flutist, introduced classical flute to, because the flute used to be a folk instrument. And so he came to Maihar when I was very young, maybe 8 or 9, and he used to learn. He stayed about a month or 2 months, I don't remember, but he used to learn from my grandfather. And then he went back, and he's the one who discovered this the bass flute. Because Ronu plays the bass flute, and he has a double. That big one sounds like the horn of a ship. You played in one of my recording.
Yes.
It blew my mind because he's such a skinny guy. How can he blow such a big, huge bamboo? You remember? You played one of my recording in Bombay.
Oh yeah, Pan Digital, yeah.
Oof. So anyway, so this is the problem these days, and the keeping the purity of the rag and a Dhrupad style, not Khyal style. So these are the two school of Dhrupad and Khyal. That's mainly the Khyal is much more popular nowadays, and so our gharana only plays the Dhrupad, and of course then my father and Pandit Ravi Shankar introduced called the Ragmala, which is the garlands of raga, which usually is played towards the end of a piece, and switching from one rag to another rag, one rag to another. That also has a grammar. You cannot just jump from one rag to another rag without have a smooth transition. So there is a grammar, and you have to know all these ragas from where to where you have to switch, and it should not sound awkward to your and jarring to your ear, and has to have a smooth transition and more melodic. So these are the things which I'm trying to follow and teach my students. But before ending, I have to tell you one. You may take it as a joke. When Pandit Ravi Shankar ji was learning sitar from my grandfather, of course his sitar was completely modified by my grandfather, because in olden days, when Ustad Khan Sahab used to play alap, he will play the alap in Surbahar. And there's no gatkari, playing the gat with tabla. So then he used to switch into sitar. So once, that was the time of my grandfather, and they were very good friends also. And so my grandfather decided, why not alap and the gat both can be played in one instrument, because it's very difficult to carry two instruments, and also their measurement, their style, and the surbar is such a large instrument. So anyway, so he designed a sitar which has the kharaj. Kharaj means the bass string, where you can do the alap, and also you can play the gat. So Pandit Ravi Shankar is the first one who introduced this instrument, and then he started playing. So what happened? This is something I have to use little harsh word. I ask your forgiveness. So all these ustads started getting jealous. Well, ये बंगाली साला मछली खाता है, and he's teaching sitar. Does he know how to play sitar? and he, and then they were saying, oh, Ravi Shankar plays sarod baj, not sitar baj. So one time he was among the musicians in some conference. So my grandfather started telling, you people have so many baj, patang baj, ikke baj, randi baj, londe baj. He gave them such a so. So this is the story of baj.
That's very interesting. When he's there, you get more and more and more.
He was
learning process.
He was so, straightforward, because he was such an honest man. Whatever he used to come in his mind, he will tell on your face, whether you like it or not. At one time, some people started calling him Durvasha Muni, because he used to get angry in a second, like a rocket, and then next moment he's cooled down. So he was that kind of a person, but he was very good at heart, and he loved everybody. He never accepted any gift from any students, and if anybody brings any gift to give him, he will take it, not to offend him. The next thing he will pass it to his student. You take it. So that kind of person he was. Very, very honest, very, very hardworking. He used to love gardening. He used to do himself. And those days, we have a huge, front yard where he used to cut all the grasses, all the bushes and everything. And one side of house, my aunt used to practice, and another side of house, my father was practicing. And if they make any mistakes, he will shout from there that you're not playing right, or whatever. So that kind of person he was. Very hardworking, and very disciplined, extremely disciplined. Living with him like you are living with a clock. You cannot go 1 second here and there.
Yeah, true. I think that is the greatness of all the gurus. Really, the simplicity of their lifestyle and their way of thinking, and also the sort of the strictness that they would also demand from their students whom they are really bringing up. So
No, he was extremely disciplined, and I used to get only 5 minutes to have a breakfast. If I exceed more than 5, then he will shout, "What are you eating?" What? You run to your room. And 6 in the morning means it is a winter or summer. Summer was not problems. Winter used to be so difficult for me to practice 6 in the morning. First of all, we never had any heater or anything, or no fan in my room. And the sarod plate is a steel plate. So, just touching the first note and then I used to practice so much, my nails were all gone. Yeah. But with that, I had to get the mean and whatever he was teaching, for me. Now I use artificial nail. But those days, I never forget.
We can imagine, but it's so good to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing all these small pieces of
many stories.
Okay, then Bikramji, I would like to come to you now. You have such an immense knowledge of the tabla, and you've also played many melodic compositions of the Maihar gharana with so many different artists. So, if you can share your thoughts on the Gatkari connection of the Maihar gharana, and I think if I remember correctly, you also played with the golden trio of Pandit Vishwamohanji, Pandit Ronu Majumdar ji, and Pandit Tarun Bhattacharya ji. Like maybe, for a better word, a Tigalbandi maybe. So if you could probably, share your experiences on that, we would love to hear that.
Well, the Gatkari is a very, very important part of the Maihar Baj. Can you hear me? I think there's suddenly lost sound. Okay, right.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. So the gatkari is extremely important, and of course, every tabla player has a take on how to accompany. Every single tabla player has a stylistic approach, which is individual, maybe influenced by their training. My personal take on the gatkari part, where the tabla joins after the alap jor jhala, is that it is like a relay race. So if you know, in a relay, what happens is you carry the little kind of baton kind of thing, which then you rush to the next point and you give it to somebody else, and the person takes it forward again, and so it keeps going like that. So in the gatkari formation here, it is a similar thing that happens. So if, for example, Ronuda is playing, Ronuda will set the mood through the gat he plays. So if every gat, not just the raga, but the gat also has a character. The gat has the character which has to adhere to the raga, but also must adhere to the tala. Mm-hmm. So if the gat is being played in dhamar, for example, then the gat has to adhere to the character of the tal. So the tal, what is the character of the tal? The character of the tal is, number one, the vibhag, which is the distribution of matras, and is also the accent points in that vibhag. Furthermore, there is a mood to every tal. Now, if you look at the Indian classical system, it's very interesting that you have multiple tals in the same number of matras. So you can have an ada chautala, you can have a chachar, or you can have a dhamar. And they're all in 14. Or if you have a rupak, which is 7, you may have 2 avartan gat in rupak, which makes it 14 again. So, but they're all different tals. So what is it that makes, why do you have different tals in the same number of matras? You have different tals because the character of that tal is unique. So let me give you an example, and this is what I have learned accompanying the stalwarts, So to give you a very broad example, dhamar of 14 beats is a hathi, is an elephant. So it goes ga, dhe, da, dhe, da, dha, ga, di, la, ta. So there is a majesticness to the tal. The same tal becomes a deer or a rabbit when it becomes a chachar. Dha, dhe, dha, din, ta, dhe, dha, din, dha, dhe, dha, din, ta, dhe, dha, din. It becomes a smaller animal. So the whole accompaniment modus and the interpretation of the tal then becomes that, depending on what tal is chosen. So if Ronuda has started dhamar or whatever tal, then I will have to adhere to the character of that tal, and importantly, the character of the raga also. And how is he approaching it? So if I cannot play a parallel track, I have to adhere to what he is setting. So first he plays the gat, then there's an uthan, and after the uthan he will set the mood of that gatkari. I follow the mood of the gatkari, but it doesn't mean that I copy the mood of the gatkari. Wow. It does not mean that I have to continually play the same thing that he's playing. No, what I can do is I can take a thought from his book and take it forward maybe to another point, and then he will see that and get interested and attracted to that thought and pick it up from there and take it to another point. And then again, I pick it up from there. So that is why it's a relay race, So it becomes a joint activity, which cannot work if one person is out of sync. It cannot happen. It will never happen. So the tabla player and the instrumentalist have to be in sync with each other. If the thoughts are not matched, if the mood, the aesthetics is not matched, then it will not happen. So a good tabla player, in my opinion, since you asked me this question about gatkari, is a person who is able not only to just understand the tal, the raga, and the mood of that concert, but also is able to know a little bit of the person who he is accompanying. I have to understand who the person is, because that particular person will have certain nuances, certain expressions which are unique. And thereby, if I know a little bit of that, that information comes in handy to build the garland, because we're building it together. So it is a beautiful process, a very, very creative process, the Gatkari, and then how that progresses. And you cannot under any circumstance, I do not adhere to that school where you are destroying a thought process. Just because I have to play a particular bani. अभी ये मेरा धिरकिट का लय है या मेरा धिने गिने का लय है, अब मैं यहाँ धिने गिने बजाऊंगा, चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए मैं बजाऊंगा यहाँ. That's a bummer, so to say. That doesn't work. So you have to be prepared to take the essential concept of the concert forward, sometimes at the cost of your ego. You may want to do something in a moment and show off. बस यहाँ बजाएंगे, अभी ताली हो जाएगा, बट आपको धैर्य धरना है कि नहीं, यहाँ नहीं करते हैं, वहां करते हैं जहां पे जगह बेटर है, जमीन बेटर है. So these are the things that are so intrinsic to the concept of Gatkari, and why the tabla player is very important to the scheme of things. Why Maihar has always beautifully incorporated the tabla player, and which is why it's so much fun for the tabla player also, you know. So yeah, these have been, I mean, you can go down into the depths of it. There's no end. Kahan tak aap ja sakte ho. And I personally feel that a lot of tabla players, they forget that they have two instruments. They don't have just the tabla. They also have the left hand drum, which is called the baya.
Yeah.
So sab baaj jo hai, see, understand the tabla as an instrument. It is a staccato drum on the right hand, which does not have modulation. And it is a non-tunable, you can imitate tunes, but it's a non-tuned instrument on the left, which has full-on modulation. So it's one of the very few modulatory drums in the world. I mean, how many drums are modulatory? The drum kit is not a modulatory drum. You can't modulate it. तो जहाँ पे रागदारी हो रहा है, जो कि modulated note है, वहाँ बायां का importance बहुत ज़्यादा है. For accompaniment especially, आप तबला सोलो में दिखा सकते हो कि देखो मैं ये दाहिना हाथ का ये दिखा रहा हूँ, 2-finger style, ये सब कर रहा हूँ. But accompaniment में the बायां role is very, very important, because you are expressing through that. अगर मुझे बोलना है, अरे मुझे तो बहुत ही अच्छा लगा, तो मैं तबला से नहीं बोल पाऊंगा. वो मुझे बायां से बोला घेना दागेना घेन दाती था, तो ये मुझे बायां से मिले. So that is the way we think about the whole accompaniment structure, the gatkari, the understanding of the gat, understanding of the raga, taking it forward step by step, and being completely in sync with the artist you're playing. Thank you.
Lovely. Such an insightful answer, and so precisely and nicely explained with it really helps to really understand in very simple language all the different technicalities, but really great to hear you. Pandit Ronu ji, I'd like to come to you quickly. We've almost running out of time, but I think we still can a couple of questions, because there's a lot that the viewers would also like to hear. I think Pandit ji, you are probably one of those rare flautists who has also been able to, had the privilege, if I may say so, to perform a Jugalbandi with Aashish Khan Saheb ji himself. So performing.
How do you know that? Well, good.
So performing with somebody like Aashish Khan Saheb, who's like a guru and a Khalifa, it must be very exciting, and probably there must be also some nervousness, I guess, when you are performing with such a big person. So really love to hear your thoughts and experiences, and how did that happen? And
oh, I'm so humbled to say that we had Aashish Kaka had a student in Chicago called Pankaj Agarwal, and well, I'll not go to that story. So he said, I want to organize this concert because he just worships Ashish Kaka, and, you know, like that. Well, cutting into short, and then he said, I would have to like to have a jugalbandi, solo and jugalbandi. You know, his full concept was Ashish Kaka himself and myself, and of course, Pranesh Da came, and one of the student of Swapanda, I think Indrani came. I think somebody. I think that concept Swapanda didn't come. He had no time or something happened. So when Pankaj ji said, I will talk to him. I said, I have no, मुझे हिम्मत नहीं है पूछने का कि मैं आपके साथ बैठूं. तो पंकज जी तो थोड़ा, you know, he comes from the organization side. Then he spent years with Ashish Kaka learning. And then when Ashish Kaka went from Chicago to another city, he said, he sent a handwritten letter on पंकज जी के हाथ में कि रोनू मैं अभी शिकागो से दूसरी जगह जा रहा हूँ, तुम इसको सिखाओ बांसुरी. He's a flute player. So immediately, someone who is like my Guruji, who is a Guruji, who is a Khalifa of Maihar, and he said, मेरा रोनू बहुत प्यारा प्लेयर है, मैं बजाऊंगा उसके साथ. मैं मैहर में सुना, वो बहुत सुरीला है, वो सब तो छोड़ दो. I was playing a pilu. This is love for the students who will learn just by YouTube, and that's not. YouTube can give you something, you know. You listen to others and get inspired. So I was playing. If you allow me, Ashkaka, I'll just sing the composition very quickly and say what happened. I went to his apartment, took his permission and a little bit of talim and what we are going to perform. तो मेरा जो वो पीलू का बंदिश था, अपभ्रंश एक शब्द है. अपभ्रंश माने आप सीखते हैं कहीं से वो बदल के आप तक पहुंचता है. तो पा द पा सा नहीं सा गा रे सा नहीं सा रे पा द द बहुत बोलंग का है. बांसुरी में बजाना बहुत मुश्किल है. Still, because I try to play the pure Maihar Baj and, you know, Drupad Baj or these kind of beenkari. So da 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 pa da pa za ni sa da 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 da. Immediately he stopped me. तुम ये बनारसी बना इधर ला रहे हो, ये तो बहुत अच्छा है. But we also go to Shuddha Gandhar directly in Maihar style pilu. And I had tears. I said, and then whole bandish now I play the way he taught me. So now, so I started understanding, because what happens, so we never go sa re ga ma ga ni sa, we never do this in Banarsi kind of pilu, and जिसको हम कजरी ठुमरी दादरा झूला जो हमारा बनारस का ट्रेडिशन है. बट तो इतना वो एक्सपीरियंस इतना इमोशनल है. Then we started practicing mand. So he said, Ronu, you have learned from Lakshman Prasad Jaipur wale vocal. So this mand you are playing, don't get influenced by me. So you have a big heart. I am playing the way I have learned mand, but you are playing actual mand of Rajasthan, which is like Mari Preet Nivajo ji Savara Mari Preet. So he was so happy. He said, Ronu, keep this mand, because the mand you are playing is make me cry. So I didn't know what to say. Someone like Guruji. So many stories. Then Bombay recording, he was talking very quickly. I'll take just one more minute very quickly. So he came to through Mahesh Babu this banyan tree. So banyan tree called me and I said, how much money? And I said, it's a Ashirwad. Well, so the Dhaivat, I will never forget. I have learned something again. I played 7 pieces, and Ashish Kaka said, you have a good experience of working in Bollywood, so your speed is very good, finishing the piece very quickly, dubbing. So, but ni da sa da ni pa ga da. So whenever that Dhaivat came, I had again tears. I said, it's not fusion. It's pure melody. And Shabbo College, I think, Ashish Kaka, if you remember, Shabbo College in San Francisco. And I got an opportunity to play a big, huge collaborative concert with one of the greatest guitar player ever born, called Larry Coryell, and Ashish Kaka, of course, and Swapanda on tabla. So that time he was 60, but now, it's almost 22, 23 years old, that concert.
Yeah.
He said, Ronu, this is a 60 years old child about Ashish Kaka. So they both had one piece. So, and we just took our set out of that piece, because the way Larry Coryell played and the way Dada joined that Kirwani, we should never join. We could never enter into that. And they just both kept playing for like, they have been playing always together. So those experience, I was very emotional to share.
Mm-hmm.
And it was blessing. Suddenly that came question, and I became very emotional. And it was always blessing to be with him, to learn something. This is the journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ronoji. We are almost running out of time, but we have one, so there are some attendees who would also like to interact with you. So we'll take one last question, maybe from one of the attendees. We have with us Kaustav Aucharji, who himself is a flute player. So we can I'll invite him also to ask a question. Kaustavji, maybe please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. My humble pranam to all the legends over here, and I'm very thankful to Mandarji for organizing this best interactive session and giving us opportunity to talk with the legends. My question is to Ustad Aashish Khan Sahab ji. Dada, you are responsible for teaching many talented artists. You have nurtured many artists so far. Today, many of your students are established performing artists from different part of the world. You never have taken the credit for all of your efforts, but as a guru, how do you feel about them when you sing them as a established and talented performers? Thank you.
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't follow it properly.
Yes. Yes. Am I audible now, Dada?
Yes. Yeah, because the voice is cutting off,
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Mandarji, you might want to explain it if he's not hearing.
Yeah, I have heard the question. I'll sort of repeat that. So basically, Kaustavji was saying that as a guru, you've sort of nurtured so many a lot of talent, and many of your students are now performing all over the globe. So we were trying to sort of understand your feeling and the sense of satisfaction that you might gain when you see your students perform. So Kaustavji was asking, how do you really feel, if you could share when you see your students perform and, and talk about that a little.
Well, I'm trying my best. And so far, I have few selected students who are following my talim, and I'm hoping they will keep this gharana alive. My nephew Shiraz Ali, I'm very happy with his playing. He was very unfortunate when his father passed away when he was very young, and I was in America, so I could not teach him so much, but whenever I used to go to India, I was to teach him and other students also. So they're all doing very well. And one of my senior student, Atish, who goes to Russia to Moscow actually every year, and teaches at the Conservatory of, Moscow. So I'm very happy that at least he's trying to spread and teach this music to a place like Moscow. I never thought anybody will go to Moscow and teach Indian music or sarod or sitar, whatever. And of course, I'm in America for almost how many years? Since 68, I'm here. And that is, for many reasons, I had to leave India because I was not being encouraged when I was performing and people used to compare with me. So with my father, and also they used to always invite uh, musicians from out of town, like Bombay or Delhi or Madras, whatever. They never will give me a chance to perform, and they will all those days they always used to write such and such artist from Bombay in the parenthesis. So one day, this is one of the music conference called Tansen Music Conference, which is to be the most uh, popular at those days, and Shailen Banerjee was the person who used to do that, and in a cinema hall called Indira Cinema Hall in Bhavanipur. So one day I got very frustrated and told him, do you know, and that one day you will see my name in a bracket of New York, and I was not sure that I'll ever come to America. That is, I'm talking in 1960, 62, something like that. So that's one of the reasons I left India, and I'm very happy that I left. And I miss India. I miss Indian audience, though I go every year now. I'm performing, but my knowledge of music really expanded, which probably would have never expanded if I left, if I have lived in India, and that knowing all kind of music, experimenting and enjoying them and understanding them, and I have recently published a book in Western notation. This is the first kind of a book ever been written, which is my 10 years of teaching to the intermediate and advanced students in Cal Arts, and it's all written in Western notation. And unfortunately, this Corona has really stopped me, promoting that book, because that was going to be a course in my classes. So this is one thing I have done, and this book has all the morning ragas with alap, with the gat, tihais of all morning ragas, and then next book is already being in writing. One of my student, John, he's a very good, talented musician. He used to be in Banaras. He used to learn sitar. Then he came to America, started learning for sitar from me. Then he switched from sitar to sarod, and he's the one who's helping me writing the book. And then the artwork is done by one of my very good friend, Jager, her name is. So this book will be available in Amazon or other publishing companies. So these are the things which I have been able to do after coming to America. Probably I would have never thought of writing a book when I was in India. So it really helped me, and this book will be a treasure after I leave this world. And I know this book is going to be a treasure for all the students, and because it has the Maihar gharana compositions and the proper descriptions and compositions of rag and tal. It's not just I've written a composition in 10 1/4, which is in this book, 10 1/4 tal, savadas. I call it a savadas, and it's a beautiful tal, and it's very mathematical. Just to give you an idea, like we count, like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each one is divided into 4. So this is how it's called 10 1/4. Anyway, I will play bickram. I will play this time when I come.
Yes.
It's a very, very interesting tal. Somehow I created.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Amazing.
Really looking forward to that. And we have actually one more attendee who is also eager to ask. We'll try to accommodate one question there. And hopefully, we'll be still able to manage our time.
Sure.
So we have with us Ashwini ji, who is also wanting to ask a question. let me see if she's able to connect. Ashwini ji, can you hear us?
My humble pranam to all the legends. My question is to Aashish Khan Saheb ji. Baba Alauddin Khan ji has composed new ragas like Madan Manjiri, Prabhakali, Manj Khamanj, and many more. Can you please talk about them and help us enhance our knowledge?
Well, I have learned few of his ragas. His one of most favorite rag was Hem Bihag, and Hemant, with Pandit Ravi Shankar has recorded long back in 78 RPM. And so Hem Bihag is one of his favorite rag. Madan Manjari is of course named after my grandmother. So he dedicated that rag to her with a song. There are some lyrics also, which I don't have in front of me, but it's written in one of his books, you know. Anyway, and then Manj Khamaj, which became one of the most popular rag, Manj Khamaj, which my aunt has a recording you will find in the YouTube. She's playing this rag, and it's of course later on it's been used as a semi-classical, but it's much more as a classical rag, because this rag you can play in both ways, very strict classical way and also in a semi-classical way, where you're putting all these rag malas, which my father and Pandit Ravi Shankar, when they used to play duet, they used to play this rag very often, Manj Khamaj, okay? And still I play, and it's a very sweet rag, you know. And like that. What are the other names you said? Manj Khamaj is one, Hem Bihag is one, and then Madan Manjari is one, and there are few more compositions which he has created in his orchestra, Maihar band. I don't remember the names yet, but mostly I focused in Hem Bihag. It's not an easy rag because you have to be very careful that it does not sound like a Khamaj or more like a Bihag or more like a Hemant, because it has a borderline between Hemant and Hem Bihag. So this is how this rag is created by him, and it's a very serious rag.
Yeah, I think not many people know about Baba Alauddin Khan creating so many different ragas, but it is good to hear from you. Thank you for such an insightful answer. And before closing, I'd like to take one last question from Pandit Ronu Majumdar ji. And then I think we'll be able to close. So, Pandit ji, you've been really striving to, preserve the purity of the Maihar gharana style of playing. And we would like to hear from you, in these changing times, how important is it, for us also to motivate the future generations and who are, and help them to practice and keep this legacy alive. So if you could share some thoughts on that, and then maybe we'll close.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a learning process. Even every day, many things I learned today only in Khan's presence. So today's time, it's a very collaborative world today. Those things are going to happen, and always it gives something, and that's that's another also part of musicianship. But keeping the legacy in a pure form is very important to teach with utmost sincerity, which I try. Time is changing. Of course, the pandemic is not going to be here for always. I mean, we are praying every day. So Zoom, even it's Guru Shishya Talim is 1-to-1, and that Talim is almost getting less and less, and I mean almost a dying tradition, very sadly. So in his presence, how can I talk so much on it? But I can only say that it's both the, you know, vice versa. Guru शिष्य से कुछ नहीं लेता और शिष्य गुरु को सर्वस्व देता है. तो ये बहुत फनी, बहुत मीनिंगफुल फिलोसॉफिकल बात है. तो ऐसे ही ये ट्रेडिशन को बचा सकते हैं. द सिंसियरिटी फ्रॉम बोथ द साइड. तो बनारस में बहुत फनी बात मैं बोलने जा रहा हूँ. तो किशन महाराज जी के साथ जैसे मुझे सौभाग्य मिला बजाने का 2003. तो जैसे वो हाथी का चाल बोल रहे थे तो वही बोलते थे, अरे इसको घोड़े के जैसा कैसे दौड़ावत हुआ धमार के. तो वो बनारसी में बोलते थे कि इसको घोड़े के जैसा मत दौड़ाओ, ये हाथी का चाल है. तो आज बिक्रम जी ने वो याद दिला दी, बहुत खुशी हुआ. तो यही बात है कि ये जो तालीम है ये बहुत सूक्ष्म है, गंगा जल की तरह. तो ये मैहर का जो जैसे काका ने कहा कि ये ध्रुपद से अनिबद्ध आलाप, जैसे ख्याल में क्या होता है कि आलाप को बांध दिया जाता है सर्कल्स में खत्म होके, फिर मुखड़ा पकड़ते. मैंने ख्याल भी थोड़ा लक्ष्मण प्रसाद जी से सीखा. उसका जो आलाप को क्लोजिंग करते हैं शॉर्ट इसमें ब्लॉकेज में, तो वो एक अलग ट्रेडिशन है. मगर ये जो ध्रुपद में जो आलाप आकाश की तरह है, तो ये अनिबद्ध आलाप है ध्रुपद का. ध्रुपद आलाप में कोई रिदम का सर्कल नहीं है. तो इसमें शिष्य को समझाना है. और ये चेंजिंग टाइम में भी, एज बिक्रम जी सेड एंड काका सेड, unless and until you keep your tradition and your past alive, you can't progress in the present and you can't build up the future. So I think that's it. I mean, it's a joint effort to keep the Maihar tradition, take it forward and learn, keep learning. And recently I'm practicing the Baba's own bandish in a, I just forgot the bandish. I mean, that I learned later on, but it's very emotional for me to talk. It's a Desham Jajavanti. So while cleaning something, there was one handwritten. So I'm practicing that of Baba's Rega Madaga Mare Gagre Sadan Re Rega Magar Dar 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 Re Nida Pa 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 Re Dhani Re Rega Mapada Nida Pa Maga Rega Mapada Rega Maga Rega Zanida Rega Madaga Dar 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 Dar. So this Anaghat thing is not purposely, it just enters into Anaghat. That's the original Bandish of Baba. So I got it from him, and now I'm practicing that. So it's just everyday process to think about your past. That's it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been really great talking to all of you. And time has really flown. I think we just spent a good, 1 hour 45 minutes talking to you, but I think it is such an enriching experience, and probably also historic one, because I think we have Aashish Khanji today with us for the first time, and we have gathered together to pay tribute to Baba Alauddin Khan Saheb and relive some of his memories. So with that, I think we are sort of end of this webinar today. But before ending, I would also, once again like to thank all of you for really taking time and explaining to our audiences all the different things that we've spoken about. I'd also like to thank the viewers who have been watching this live stream on on Facebook, and I'm sure they must have really enjoyed it. So once again, thank you all for really spending time and honoring us with your presence and with your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and my Ashka Pranam, and Bikramji, thank you, and Mandarji for the opportunity to sit in front of him. There's no words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you all.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye. Bye.